Yeah, so John Robb here interviewing Mark Morris from the Bluetones. So another comeback.
Another comeback. Uh, I don't know if we've had a successful comeback yet. So this is still the same sort of plod.
Well, I think artistically is. I mean, the in the cut is a song that's as good as the stuff you had in the heyday. I mean that's an achievement because most bands, can sustain their careers for decades by playing the hits, but you've actually got a song that actually measures up.
Oh, it's very kind of you to say. Thanks. Well, I think that's partly the reason it's taken so long is because up until recently we haven't really had the impetus. Um, a few things happened in the last couple of years. I mean, if we roll back a little bit, we were talking about making a record in 2019, 2020, and then of course everything stopped. And we were talking about getting together to make a record, so we just didn't get together. And then things started again, and it seemed like we should just play some shows. So we did that for a couple of years, and then we got to a point where we found a new place to work, which is where I am today. It's not a studio in London; it's a house in Surrey, and it's close to our producer. He lives 20 minutes down the road, so he can be here every day. And we haven't had that. We've always rehearsed on the far side of London. So having him here and having access to just recording all the sessions just rolled into us kind of writing songs and looking at some songs that we started, like I say, just before lockdown and that sort of thing. And I don't know, there was just a real collective hunger to do it. I think it was kind of coming out of, you know, that word again, coming out of lockdown, coming back into touring, coming back into playing again. It was a natural step for us because things like rehearsals were just, it takes as long as it does to hear the set for us to rehearse it. We played it so many times. So we were just starting to share ideas, things were moving in a different direction, and we've just gone with it. We thought, let's just go in with both feet, start a new label, release some EPs, and we can work at a pace that suits us and be creative in a way that the deadlines you do need deadlines, otherwise you just meander. But work in a way that suits all of us because our situation is not the same as it was when we first started making records.
I
And
mean,
here we are.
the way you talk about how you're working here, have you changed the process of writing? Is it this, like when a young band, you just go in a room and it's a bunch of chords and the song comes together. Is it more crafted approach? You're working with a producer.
No, it's still the same approach, really. We still face each other in a circle and share and learn each other's ideas, and then we go away individually, come back, go away, come back. You do stuff at home, you do stuff together, then you show it and share it. It's like that, really, and that's how it kind of forms shared experience. Yeah.
Yeah, that word shared. I mean, you've still got the same lineup, and you seem to all pitch something into the band. I mean, was it just fortuitous that you ended up in that situation? And like every other band in that period, it's fallen apart or got different lineups, or
Well, I think it has to be. Yeah, I think it has to be good fortune, of course, that the right four friends got together because we've remained friends. We're still in each other's lives. We're like family, really. Our lives are all intertwined. Even though one of us lives in Tokyo, it doesn't sort of. I mean, there's miles between us, but there's still lots of contact and sharing of things, sharing of films that we're watching, records we're listening to, all that sort of stuff. All the same conversations we had 30 years ago, really, which is good. It keeps us young. It keeps us fresh. It keeps us still very much enjoying being a Bluetone.
I mean, when you were growing up in Hounslow, were you like, would it be fair to say you were the only four kids into that stuff? Is that what bonded you really? Like it was a small island of coolness.
Well, it was there was quite an interesting little indie scene happening. There were a few places to play in Hounslow at that time. So there were quite a few young bands, all sorts of things as well. Quite sort of heavy indie stuff. Adam was in another band at the time called Perfect Mess, and they were quite jangly. When we were in a band called the Bottle Garden, we just sort of came together and became the Bluetones. It was Scott and I from the Bottle Garden. Adam joined from Perfect Mess, and then we met Ed's in London, in Carnaby Street, of all places. We were introduced by Math Priest from Dodgy, because we knew Dodgy, and he knew that we were looking for a drummer, and he knew that Eds was in a band, that he was looking to do something else, because he was in a band that was quite electronic, and he wanted to do something else that was a bit more organic, I suppose. And there was, I mean, at that time, you know, as you remember, like 1989, 1990, 1991, that period after Fool's Gold and all that, and Hallelujah and that sort of thing, there was a sort of more colourful sense to the sort of alternative scene around that time, and it did bring a lot of people together. But like I say, in those days there were places to hang out, and I don't think there are anymore. Certainly not in somewhere like Hounslow. I don't know, not lived there for a while, but I don't think there is.
I mean, in 1989, was there a sense were you already in that kind of space? Or was this, you know, when the Stone Roses came along, it was like, wow, there's somebody's a bit like us? Or were they kind of primary influence, or were you already?
Oh no, they were already going, of course. And I mean, I met the lead singer of the band that I joined at a Stone Roses gig. He gave me a cassette of his band, and the fact that they had cassettes, you know, handmade, hand drawn, all that sort of thing. It's like, oh, this guy's serious. It's like, yeah, I want to be in a band with this guy because I really want to do it. And his name was Robin, and he was so focused and committed that that was really attractive. And but of course, like every other 17-year-old in the summer of '89, I was just completely blown away by the Stone Roses' first album. Yeah. That and the Smiths and things like that were a big influence on the sort of band I wanted to be in.
Well, the Smiths, the first, you know, like everybody has that thing that is, everyone's into music, and then there's one band that comes along, and it's like suddenly you take the U-turn, don't you? It's like, oh, this is the moment. Would it be the Smiths, or would it be?
It would be the Smiths with me, yeah. Again, it's like my friend at school, Greg, handed me a C90 saying you should listen to this, and it was like Hatful of Hollow on one side. So I'd been to his house, and his mum liked the Smiths, and I remember they were playing the 12-inch, the single version of What Difference Does It Make? Like really loud, like louder than I'd ever heard music played in a house, and it was being played by, you know, an adult. And that made a big impression, and I liked it. And Greg gave me this cassette that he copied for me of Hatful of Hollow, and I was completely in love. You know, the days of walk, you know, the walk to and from school, listen to it in bed, and then became obsessed with the Smiths because they were so unlike everybody else. And in a way, when the Stone Roses hit, that was a similar sort of thing. The indie scene had gone a bit grey. It had gone either a bit grey or a bit sort of tie-dye. And they came along and they seemed like something else. They seemed like a genuinely sort of psychedelic experience for our young minds.
I think they were a genuine psychedelic experience.
Yeah.
Like the Smiths on acid.
And a great gateway to other music because, you know, you'd read, like This Is How It Works. You read interviews and you're obviously interested in what they might be listening to. So from that, you sort of discover things like the Byrds and Jimi Hendrix. And then from them, Jimi Hendrix and the Byrds, you discover Buffalo Springfield and Neil Young and blah, blah, blah. But yeah, they were kind of like a gateway, definitely. The Smiths were a gateway into the Lars, who were a gateway into the Stone Roses.
Yeah, I always thought the Lars were the next band that was going to make it.
Yeah.
9-inch, but somehow because of the way that Lee Mavers was, they kind of missed their own bandwagon, didn't they?
That's a good way of putting it. Yeah.
But
you remember those times? It's like just waiting for him to do something, waiting for him to release another record. After, you know, they did that, the original "There She Goes" with all those cool B-sides. It's like, now what? Nothing. They signed to Go Discs. Okay, right, something might happen. Oh, it's "There She Goes" again.
He can never sound right, but he was right in a way because they couldn't get it right in the studio, could they? I mean, they were so special. I think they just didn't fit into like a homogenous music industry.
Yeah, certainly certainly a man out of time, Lee Mavers, as were his songs. You could argue. I mean, they seem to spring out of nowhere, right?
Mm.
And because that 1960s sound was not very fashionable in the mid 1980s. It couldn't be more viewed as more sort of Jurassic in a way.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, with their horrible big snare sound, the 80s sound.
Oh my God. I know we like those records for a different reason now, don't we?
Yeah, yeah, they actually do sound better than they did at the time, but it was great to hear something so raw, like
Yeah,
like the early Lars, or even like the Smiths to a certain extent. They were kind of halfway, weren't they? But
yeah.
once you hear a guitar again, did sound, especially a really well played guitar, sounded great, didn't it?
And then of course it was like it was in that void waiting for the Lars to do something that we saw the Stone Roses on the Other Side of Midnight on this show. It's called The Other Side of Midnight down here. I think it was like a weekly catch up on all the regional arts programs. So we saw that on a Sunday night, and we were like, "Oh, hello,
Yeah, it was a perfect
a new
package.
band." Yeah,
It looked great, sounded great, attitude, the whole thing was there, wasn't it?
but the thing is, it's I don't really listen to those records much anymore. I think I sort of saturated them so much at the time, and to be honest, I've kind of not loved their output since, like either individually or collectively. So it's kind of now it's kind of like frozen for me, that sort of thing, in a way. Be there, it was like my punk,
Yeah, no,
it
yeah,
was
it's
my
great
flowering.
to have a record or a band that's in that moment that changes your life. That's their job. They don't have to
I
come.
know I know you do wonder if the youth get these same experiences now. Everything seems so fractured.
Yeah, I think music, it's still great music getting made, but it's not central to people's lives anymore. It's something in the background while they're doing gaming.
Yeah, it's
Whereas
true.
maybe
Yeah,
this is quite
maybe
sad,
2
but when
seconds
we
of
were all
something on
younger,
TikTok. Yeah.
yeah, in our youth, it was everything because there was actually nothing else to do, was there? And Dodgy are in this story as well, aren't they? Which also thought is quite interesting.
Yeah, that's how we met Eds, really, was because we knew Dodgy and they were active and out. We knew them because um, we went to one of their gigs once. We went to see another band, actually. We went to see a band called The Grooveyard, and Dodgy was supporting, and they were brilliant. And so after the gig, we approached them and said, when you're playing next, where you're from, all that sort of thing. And they said, "Oh, we live in Hounslow." I was like, "We live in Hounslow?
Yeah.
How come we haven't seen you about?" And they told us where they lived, and it was on the same estate that our Scott and my nan and granddad lived on. So we just popped round there one Sunday afternoon for a cup of tea and that, and we're really sort of interested in their setup because had ambitions ourselves. At that point, we still didn't have a drummer, as I mentioned, but it was interesting for us to watch them in their career, watch them get signed, go to their gigs, see their audience grow, and just hang out with them whilst they were experiencing it. It was kind of like a bit of an apprenticeship in some ways,
I mean,
and it all felt so reachable.
did you learn a lot from them? You know, how to set a band up?
Well, we inherited this their rehearsal space because they converted the garage in the garden into a rehearsal space, and we inherited that and just sort of patched it up a bit and used it for ourselves. But it was more to do with I think because we were sort of out. To be honest, we had different ideas about how things should be done, but that's all right, isn't it? You just sort of watch them go and sort of go, "Oh, wouldn't have done that," or wouldn't have, those little things. Wouldn't have done that video. Wouldn't have done that cover art, that sort of stuff. But however, still being like really impressed by the inroads they were making, and also their continued creativity at that time. Nigel was very prolific, and for us being a little bit younger than them, it was motivating and inspiring.
Mm. Was this when they're on the cusp of being where they'd been musically before to turning into that again, another band that's obviously picked up the mantle from the Roses, but made their own version of it?
Yeah, they they were at that time. It was this is obviously this is right from the beginning of their career. Really, we were there as their pals. So it would have been right from their first single release when they were signed to A&M, when they were doing stuff with Ian Brody and their first recording they did with Paul Schroeder, of course, who was the engineer, wasn't he?
Mm.
On the Stone Roses records. And so there was that. There was that, which was like, oh, that's good. That's interesting. But I think, because musically, I've always felt we're quite different, but we like them. We like their sound. It's like, you're good, but it wasn't sort of like a creative and inspiring thing. You know what I mean? We had pretty strong ideas about how we wanted to sound at that point. It was this thing that was influenced by sort of the current scene, but also really embracing the music we've fallen in love with, like the West Coast music that we'd been led onto by listening to things like the Stone Roses.
So with your band, it's very rare this, but your timing was perfect, wasn't it? When you start going out playing gigs, you're actually in the right place at the right time. Whereas most bands I've ever met in my life are always in the wrong place at the wrong time, and it takes them 5 years before the scene catches up with them. But
Right.
you're snapped up pretty
They call
quickly,
those
very
people
young.
innovators.
Yeah, yeah.
We can never be accused of that.
Well, you had your own version of it though. You had your own take, which I think is important as well. It's like, yeah, yes, you can see where the influences are, but you definitely made them into your own vibe, didn't you?
I think so. I think so. I think we've grown as well, because that was a very long time ago. It's like literally boys to men.
Yeah.
So, but they were. It's true to say that they were a strong influence when we were forming and when we were first writing the songs that became the first album. But you grow, you branch, your tastes expand, your ambitions expand. You know what I mean? And I think when you're young, you're okay with those sorts of comparisons because it's flattering. But then you just try to be. You learn that the real expression is to be evaluated on your own terms for your own thing, which again is never easy because you're always going to be genred.
It's not always a problem.
It's not really worth worrying about in many ways. It's like let other people have that chat.
So, I mean, how old were you at this point in time? You were 19, 20?
Which point we hit?
Well, wait, actually, when you actually swept up and become really successful really quickly.
Oh yeah. Well, Slight Return was the one that obviously went quite big, and that was 96. So I was 24 at that point. Scott would have been the youngest in the band at 22. So yeah, that was a bit of a interesting time. Things literally did spin up into the air. I mean, we went from being on the dole to all of a sudden, we've got a bank balance. Never had a bank balance before. Not loads in it, but now we could move into our own independent living areas and have our own flats and have a bit of independence, because we'd always lived together. We'd always been on the dole, on housing benefit, and now we could be proper grown-ups.
Did it just seem this is what happens in a band? Did it just seem completely normal?
Well, yeah, I guess. I mean, yeah, I guess. Everyone's got a different path, haven't they? You join the army, you're going to have a different story.
And then of course, being young and in that world, I mean, there must be like really strange things, like the people whose music you really liked 3 months before, you're suddenly in the same TV studios in the same world.
Yeah. We were often quite starstruck and a little shy in those circumstances, and just nice, polite boys, just quietly getting away over here, doing our little jangle. But yeah, many times, and I still am, really. It still does happen, and it still does feel like. I was reading this thing recently, and it struck a chord with me. I was reading someone describing the music of Steely Dan and the music of the Eagles, and they were saying, well, with the Eagles music, it's like they're at the party, they're having all the fun, they're having all the heartbreak, they're meeting all the girls, doing all the coke. And Steely Dan are the ones that are like outside the window looking in and observing and they're not welcome and they don't want to go in. And that's kind of how I feel about our experiences through the years. It feels like we've been invited to someone else's party a lot of the time, and there's been some mistake, but here we are.
It's but most bands say that. I mean, Oasis would say that as well. They always felt like gate crashers on somebody else's scene, even though they were the biggest band of the lot, weren't they? So
yeah, imposter syndrome, it hits us all.
it's a very British thing, isn't it? Was there bands that took you under their wing, or bands you got on with, or is it just such a blur? You're always out touring and sort of crisscrossing with people.
It was more crisscrossy. Yeah, there were some nice moments along the way. I remember once we played a show in Paris with Radiohead, and we played like a handful of shows in France with them, but it culminated in this show in Paris. And we were advised by agents and whatnot to give the band a bit of a wide berth. They're quite private people. They like to keep themselves to themselves. They can be a bit grumpy, etc. However, after the Paris gig, it was the first night I'd bothered to go around the front of house and watch them. And it totally blew my mind. And so I had to tell them. So I went and knocked on their dressing room door about 15 minutes after the show, just to say thanks for an amazing show. And they were very welcoming. They were like, come in. And Tom sat me down and gave me some advice about how to look after my throat whilst on the road and that sort of thing. And I remember thinking, we've been getting some wrong advice about these guys. You know? So it was only nice. Lots of things like that. You know, you bump into people. Jarvis said some nice things about our music when I bumped into him at an awards ceremony a very long time ago. But these are all things that are a very long time ago. You know, once you have families, you're not all really hanging around at Syndrome anymore.
I mean, when you met the Northern bands, would that be different? You know, because you were sort of like an honorary Northern band from the South.
You know, people still sort of do say that when they hear us speak. Like, I thought you were
not
Northern.
speak. I think in a good way. Yeah.
But yeah, there's lots of lovely people. We're good friends with the guys from the Sheds, of course. And I've done stuff with John over the years from Cast and Skin. I've stayed at his house and worked in his studio in the past. Lovely place he's got in Wales. And so yeah, I mean, if anything, I know it's the old cliche, but I'm probably got more friends in the north.
I think there's more bands, probably.
There probably is more bands per capita. Yeah.
That stuff never died out up here. It just carried on. It still carries today. Yeah.
But I'm still good friends with a lot of people. I mean, in fact, last summer I was on holiday with my children we went to the Canary Islands, and I posted a picture of us on Instagram, and then I got a message from Rick Witter, and his wife had seen it, and he's like, "You're not on the Canary Islands. You're not on Gran Canaria, are you?" It's like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Well, so are we." And they were about 12 kilometres away, so we all met up for a bit of a bite to eat and a drink.
Yeah. Oh, that's nice, isn't it?
They're quite exotic.
And as easy as it was to get swept up into success, then it's diminishing returns. It's just natural for any band, isn't it? And was it like a sense of panic, or just trying to hold on to what you could hold on to, or do you think, well, this is how it is? You know, it's the short term, these careers, or did you have like some kind of rough plan of how to sustain this for a certain amount of time?
Well, I think there was a point in our career when where we entrusted things to people who proved not to be wholly trustworthy.
Mm-hmm. That's very subtle.
And that's kind of what knocked us in. That's why we kind of gave things a rest in 2011. It was a case of we kind of knew where our natural space was. And however, because we've had this big hit single, other people kind of had ambitions for the group that were bigger and a bit less realistic. You know, it's like, no, we're kind of like we're a cult band. We're not an arena band. We're never going to be an arena band. And I think people have sort of in the past tried to tap this kind of this potential in the group, you know, financially and all that sort of thing. And we've come to a place now as grown-ups ourselves and as experienced musicians where we know how it works, so we do it ourselves. We've got a sort of managerial advisor, and we got a tour manager, and we deal with everyone else ourselves. So back to the sort of the point of your question, which was sorry, I think I drifted a bit there, John.
No, that was kind of what we're talking about. And
Right.
Now it's about creating a space to be creative. Is that kind of the battle plan?
That's really, that is, you hit the nail on the head. It's being creative. I mean, we love playing together. We love the shows, but there's something really special we've found creating stuff again, recording again, and sort of that spontaneous thing that happens when only when you're in the room together, and only when you've got your sleeves rolled up and you're playing things and you're playing them a different way and you're playing them again and again, and things just pop out. It's nice. It's brilliant. It's magical.
Is that the core of the whole thing, really? That thing with the four of you together, just seeing where's this going to end up? You know, in a rehearsal room. Is this the magic?
Yeah, it really is. We don't. It's never the same way twice. Really, it's not a formula. And it's in a weird way. Sometimes when you set a song out, you think it's going to go one way. You think there's no way this song is going to sound other than this way I'm presenting it as it is now, and it always changes because everyone's got to be happy.
Yeah. Is it like that? It has to be a 4-0 sort of sort of split. If it's 3-1, it's a bit like, can we persuade the person?
No, that's, you know, I don't think it's ever happened as well. I think we've had to just drop things or just completely change them or like shelve them.
So when you tour, you know, obviously you have to play the hits, and to me, it's a plus having hits. I've been in a band forever and never had a hit, so I'd imagine having a hit's actually a nice thing to get. It's at least you got something the audience knows.
Well, it's a pleasure, yeah.
Brag, don't they? So where do you sit on that one?
Well, I think it's I find it very. I don't like rehearsing them, but I love playing them.
Yeah.
Sure. You know what I mean? We don't need to rehearse them anymore, so they're always the ones in rehearsal we just sort of blam through. But they're the ones when I derive a lot of pleasure from seeing the audience have a good time. We all do. So it's like you say, it's nice to have a few in the back pocket that you can sprinkle amongst the dreaded new songs.
When you listen to the old stuff now, and I was listening to it the other day, it does sound really youthful, and it's a real snapshot of what's almost like a very innocent time. And when you hit, I mean, obviously you don't sit there listen to your own stuff, but does it have that same kind of vibe for you? Is it a snapshot from early 20s, teenage?
It is, yeah. It's very much it. Yeah, it's like everyone else, or you know, not many people have got their lives that's so documented. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
In that regard, their youth, anyway. And it does. I was in Tesco's a few weeks ago, like about 10 o'clock at night, and it came on over the shops in-house system, and it did strike me of how youthful. I hadn't heard it for years, and it struck me of I'd caught snatches of it, and then I leave the room, you know. And but it did strike me of how youthful it is. It has got a sort of boyishness about it, a sort of innocence about it, a charm that has since been kicked out of us.
But that's a kind of good thing as well. You know, when you get older, your life does take a lot of kickings, doesn't it? And does that come into the music, or does the music, that stuff gets left at the door and the music has its own sort of narrative, really?
Well, you know, I think everything feeds into each other. And in a way, I think being able to write about things gives you some distance from them as well once you've got them out, because they become something else. You're writing it, and it's a feeling or a story that you want to make sense. And then once you've performed it a few times, it just becomes a song. It's not like you're thinking about the meaning of it in the same way that you were when you wrote it every time that you perform it. Do you know what I mean? You know what I mean, because you write songs.
Yeah, I think it's there's different bits of the song that affect you, and then it could be the drums or the chord changes, and the lyrics are just another instrument in the end, aren't they? Which doesn't take any of the depth of the meaning out of them, does it? It's just there's just different things that affect you in a piece of music when you're inside in the middle of it.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah,
Mm.
yeah. I've been listening to a lot of Underworld lately, and some of their stuff's like it is just sonic, isn't it? There's no words,
Mm.
there's no poetry in there. It's just textures.
Yeah, yeah.
Blowing my mind again.
I mean, what is the plan now with the Bluetones? Obviously, got the tour coming up, the album coming out, so
Hmm.
and probably the festivals over the summer.
Hmm.
Is that
Yeah,
kind of plan? Now you're the managers.
but kind of, we like I say, we have got a sort of leader advisor.
Mm.
But the plan is like we're back at the studio at the moment, and we're working on the next EP, which is coming out after this one, um, and also other songs around it. And the plan is to release another EP, I guess, around September time, and then collect everything together in a kind of one place on one bit of vinyl on one CD with a couple of extra songs on it. And I think we're still trying to fathom out a way of making it so that people who've already bought the EPs don't have to shell out again. So they don't end up paying £80 for an album, which seems a bit absurd. you know. So that's where we are, and it's kind of creating at our own pace. Because,
What,
like I say, Scott's sorry.
why EPs is in a way is
Well,
that a pure pop perfection an EP for you?
it's also a way of focus our creativity because we only have Scott over for a few weeks at a time, so we're able to kind of exchange ideas online and then get in a room and make them real. And cause he lives in Tokyo, so it's that little bit of pressure you need to focus everyone when we're together, and working in small batches like this, songs in groups of 3 or 4, it eliminates any dead wood
Mm.
because we just won't put it on this EP. It just won't go on any EP. Do you know what I mean? Whereas in an album, I think sometimes slightly less things slip through the net sometimes because your focus is somewhere else on the album. If you're recording 14 songs at a time, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
I think there's songs in the
almost an A side on an EP.
yeah, yeah. And so I think this process eliminates the dead wood, and it keeps us moving forward. There's no sense of album breathe. It's just keep going, another EP, another EP, another EP, until one of us pegs it.
Are you still planning to do solo stuff? Because you work very hard the solo stuff. From one point in time, and it just seems to be everywhere I ever went, you've done an acoustic gig there about 3 days before.
Yeah, that's right. I remember, yeah. I remember that period, seeing the gold blade pick posters everywhere as well. But yeah, I do the occasional show, and I still get requests from promoters to come and play shows on my own. But creatively, all my focus is on the band now. Everything I write is going into the Bluetones pot, and which is great.
Mm. Mm. Yeah, do you prefer collaborative to solo?
Yeah,
Both
I
have their
do.
own- yeah.
There's a magic in collaboration which doesn't happen when you're in charge, when you're in sole
Yeah.
charge.
The way somebody could twist an idea into make something amazing.
Yes, exactly. Really, yeah. Ideas get lifted out of the ordinary by things by like you say, instincts that don't exist in my head.
Mm. I mean, after all this time, are you still surprised by what each other do?
Yeah. Oh, very much. Oh, yeah. That's what's been great about these recordings. Because there's a lot of trust in the band. You kind of, we're not looking over each other's shoulders at everyone's overdubs all the time. You just kind of get a feel, get a flavour, and leave them to it because we know we're on the same page.
Mm.
We've driven producers mad in the past because they've separated us and it's kind of experimented. They've got us in to listen to a mix one at a time, and we've all said the same thing, like, bring the drums down, bring the bass up, or something like that, all independently.
Wow, that's a really unusual situation, isn't it?
Oh, we're lucky, I guess. Similar tastes, and like back to what we said at the beginning. The right four guys
Mm.
started hanging out.
Yeah, I mean, there's very few bands like that. I think there's bands that sustain like U2's. I'm trying to think of it. There's a very small amount of bands that keep the same lineup and seem to be on the same space.
Well, I think the common denominator, sadly, it seems to be money.
Mm.
And right from the very beginning, we've always split everything four ways, no question. So we've never had that pressure. We've just been able to enjoy the shared experience of being in a band. Do you know what I mean? Not looking over and seeing who's got the fancier car.
I know, it just seems a very cruel way to run a band.
Yeah.
So, okay, about to run out of time. So, well, thanks for that, Mark. It's great to speak to you again. And
you too, John.